All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got the man here himself. John, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Of course, of course. Thank you. It's an honor. I was excited all week to jump on here.
Listen, you're basically like the architect of content on the internet. You've been doing this a while. So for like the couple of people who are watching this who don't know who you are, let's start with just your background and kind of what you did before Shot Studios.
Yeah, so we actually founded Shot Studios 11 years ago. So my life before Shot Studios was a little irrelevant, even though I was in the content business. But Shot Studios, when we first started, we were a production studio in 2009, trying to take talent that wasn't onto the internet and bring them onto the internet, and going really after like mainstream celebrities, specifically athletes. So Mike Tyson, Usain Bolt, Floyd Mayweather, Chad Ochocinco, Cristiano Ronaldo were like early guys that we were bringing onto YouTube. Back then, the social media and the internet was really YouTube and Twitter. There was nothing else yet. Facebook was out, but Facebook was private pages only, private profiles. So I think we were a little early for our time because the monetization and the money wasn't there. And the guys that I just named right now are like used to bags of cash up front for them to even like leave their front door. So the monetization wasn't there. We were just trying to build an online audience, which was a little too early for anyone to wrap their head around. So then we made a pivot to our business. We had a very talented team. We had amazing relationships with Hollywood. And that's when we moved to San Francisco and we launched an app called The Shots app. And we were trying to get into the platform business. We said, all right, so if we're trying to help the platforms, but no one's really getting it, let's create a platform business, which is what we created was a social network, which was pretty much Snapchat stories and Instagram stories before both of them incorporated stories into the platforms. We were the first. No comments, no liking, no like counts, no follower numbers. Just post your day. Don't overthink what you're posting and get on with the day. There was an option to delete it after 24 hours, or the post could stay. The user could just decide whether they wanted however way they had their settings. So we did that, but what happened to us was really Snapchat incorporated the feature, and it kind of hurt us. We were, sometimes when platforms take a feature, it sometimes, not all the time, it helps that platform and takes the person that was initially the innovator out of business. Most times it doesn't work when platforms just copy features, but in the case of us, it did work, and it really hurt us. But during that time, a lot of content creators, like early content creators, like, what you're talking, see now is like influencers or whatever you want to call them. We still call them content creators. Were really emerging because of the Vine app. So that's when we went to plan A. And instead of going after mainstream celebrities, we said, let's get these early these early stage content creators who really know how to build an audience in with their own niche and help build a team around them, a studio around them, which is what Shot Studios is today.
Got it. And so one of the things that you guys are super well known for is you're not what I call kind of the dumb content creator, right? You're very, very smart and intelligent, using data to drive a lot of the decisions that you do. You guys were pretty early in understanding that. I previously worked at Facebook on the Facebook Pages team, and it always, shocked me how, as we were there building this growth team, like there wasn't that many people using the data that was provided in the analytics to actually inform the content that they created. You guys pioneered that in many ways. Like, talk a little bit about like, what was the original impetus for focusing on the data and trying to use that to actually inform the decisions you guys were making on the content creation side?
Yeah. Well, when you talk about partnering up with an influencer or a creator, there's thousands, maybe tens of thousands. So we wanted to identify people in two ways. One is, what is a cultural fit for our company? And is there a real business to be made around this creator? And that's where the data came in. We have internal tools that we have built, because the good thing is, when we had our engineers with the Shots app, we were able to bring the engineering team to also pivot what they were developing into more back-end stuff. And we have access to a lot of different APIs. Some are open, some aren't open. And we are able to, just build our own internal software to see, all right, who is really driving watch time, who can retain an audience, who is growing in markets that we could use growth in. So we're not lopsided with just a US audience, and we could tap into some of these other emerging internet markets such as Brazil, Mexico, India, some different parts of Asia. So, but that all, that the platforms share some data, but not a ton. They share what's, how you got here so far, but they don't really share where can you go. And that's where we build is, where can we go with this person? Where can we go with this? If you have 22 million followers on a specific platform, what does that mean? What else can we do? How do we go from 22 million to 50 million?
Yeah. And so there's obviously a ton of attention right now on content creators, influencers, right? There's kind of two buckets, I'll call it. There's one that is like more, I think, generalized as like the Instagram influencer who just, they take photos, they get paid every once in a while to do some advertising, but it's pretty much a single revenue stream type content creation. They've got a single account. What you guys really have started to do, it sounds like, is build entire businesses or ecosystems around these content creators and approach it much more as they are a business, right? You already mentioned the fact that like when you're evaluating talent, can we build a business around them? And so maybe talk a little bit, just kind of philosophically, how you guys think about these content creator led businesses and what that ecosystem kind of looks like today when you're kind of designing them.
Yeah. So we'd like to, if you look at all the different creators that we work with, and I believe there's 12 of them now, everyone is in their own lane. Everyone, one is, one could be a comedian focused on a female audience. One's a comedian focused on a male audience. One has a very large Middle Eastern market, which the Middle East market is really growing, in the US and throughout all the Middle East and North Africa. One has a very large audience out of Mexico, which is really a top 3 market for Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and I think it's Netflix's 4th largest market. One has a large Brazilian following. One is being followed because of education. One's being followed because of music. So there's all these different verticals within a creator, and we're looking at the different verticals that they create content for, and obviously we look at the first thing that I mentioned, are they growing? But 2 is, are they hitting a market where we could actually cross promote other creators? So when there's a major collaboration, it really benefits everybody. And those are the things that we look for. Those are the first 2 things we look for. Later we look into, and this is the hardest part in the influencer world, is monetization. How do you create, which I'm sure we'll get into, but that's the third thing we look for. You knock out those first 2, then you could control your own destiny when it comes to monetization.
Yeah. And so once kind of, hey, this is the right creator, they're growing in the right audiences, and we think that audience has a lot of runway, right? So you talked earlier, somebody's got 22 million followers, you think you can get them to 50 million, and you kind of understand the audience building side. How do you think about the monetization? Like, how has that evolved over time, given the various things that now kind of are available on the internet?
Yeah. Monetization is, there's quick ways to make money, but there's also, as we're looking into building long-lasting careers, we're looking to building long-lasting revenue flows. And, right now, we get calls every day. We even had 2 offers already this morning with just different offers on like, hey, we want, we saw you have this much engagement on Instagram and this much engagement on TikTok. We would love to pay to have these posts. Those happen all the time, and those happen to almost anybody. Anyone who is on the internet could get those deals, especially if you have your email address in your bio. Then advertisers are just crawling looking for you. That's the easy one. That's one I don't really I pay attention to, obviously, but I don't really. I have a whole team within Shots that handles that part. What I look forward to is, how do we build businesses? How do we have our own audience. I look at a creator as a micro platform. So if you're a micro platform, how do we build businesses? Going back to the Shots app, when we were looking at building the Shots app, or when we had the Shots app, we had over 10 million users, and we had at one point over 6 million active users. Monetization was never meant to be, okay, so when do we start putting banner ads and sponsored videos and, all these different things inside the app that everyone else does? How do we, we were looking for Shots app, and we're now doing that with Shot Studios, is how do we build our own businesses? How do we get into the merchandising businesses? How do we get into beauty? How do we get to food and beverage? How do we get into other consumer goods products, whether it's a toy, a doll, backpacks? But how do we do this without one-offs? Someone coming in and giving you a couple $100,000 for a few posts and bouncing. How do we actually own that? How do we create our own Beats by Dre? Then those are the things that we think of. How do we create our own vitamin water? And what 50 Cent did with vitamin water. How do we create these products for each one of our creators? And those are the things we're working on.
So to me, this is the most interesting thing in all of the internet, right? And the reason being, a couple of years ago, I started thinking pretty deeply about this idea of like audience is the new currency. And I think a lot of people use that as like, oh, some advertiser's going to come pay me money, and then I can simply, post or do whatever, and I get that cash. But what you're talking about, there's a very well-known author who one time said to me, if somebody's willing to pay me to reach my audience, that means that audience is more valuable to me than it is to them. Right. And basically I can sell my own things through all this kind of stuff. And they started to walk me through like, looking for very specific types of products that were high margin, that he could sell through, that he knew that there was a wide enough kind of interest in his audience. And like, he was very, very smart about it. And it sounds like you guys are thinking through a lot of that same stuff. Has it been driven at all, or do you see corollary kind of analysis to what whether it's Kylie Jenner, Kanye West, like a number of these people have done, where they already had built-in audiences and then they went and created a product? It feels like that's a much more repeatable, sustainable business model, given that you retain ownership of that audience, right? And so you can build multiple products and multiple companies and keep kind of bringing them more and more things over time, rather than just an advertiser comes one time, you advertise once, and then they're gone. Like, the company piece seems more sustainable and repeatable, right?
Of course. Yeah, you control it. I mean, especially in the influencer and content creator business, is advertisers are afraid. They're afraid, and their expectations are so high because people are comparing YouTube to television. They're saying, okay, well, you spent this much money on that TV show that had 2 million views. Well, I'm getting 10 million views, so I'm 5 times more. And, there's always a tug of war between the creator and the advertiser. And then the advertiser eventually says, okay, someone at the office says, hey, you know what, you might be right. Let's give it a shot. And then the conversion's not the same because people on the internet just don't want to see ads. They don't have to see ads on television. You're kind of stuck. You're forced, unless, you're previously recorded and you fast forward through it. But, or if it's a radio, station, like, you're kind of forced unless you just switch the station. But on the internet business, it's just like, the conversion is so much lower that, then the advertiser says, that person was wrong. Oh, by the way, look at this guy. He's now swearing in his content, or he's smoking weed, or he did this, or she did that. And then, and then someone says, hey, why did you do that? That wasn't children friendly, and then all this whole mess comes in and the advertiser pulls out and we never hear from them again. So, and I don't blame the advertiser, right? It is the wild, wild west on the internet right now. People are just, the more yourself, the better your content, better your channel is going to grow. But the more yourself, the more, you're less political, you're less phony. So, it's not what the advertisers want to see. They want to see the picture perfect version of you. So, so advertisers say, okay, this is not for us. So then where does that leave? When you went back bragging about getting 10 million views, how are you going to now make money? You're just going to brag about the 10 million views and live at home or live on your buddy's couch, so that's when, then you got to go and you got to create your own t-shirt and create a culture and a following, and not a following the number, following somebody that really cares about you, and build and have them join this culture, have them join this clique or squad, whatever you want to call it. and buy a product. And now that money goes directly to you. You know, Shopify sends daily deposits. You know what I mean? So you're literally making money every single day when you wake up.
How much data goes into determining what products or companies to build versus it's like the creator's intuition and just personal interest?
I think so. You know, it's like creating a video. You know, you're gonna, sometimes we're even guilty of this. We'll create a video that we just wanted to do and it just doesn't register with the audience. And we'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it until it's something that we're passionate about. And then the audience and then you see the views and engagement go up. I think a product that a creator really wants to get behind, it's kind of going to have to be the same thing. You know, you could take advice from people. You could, you know, like right now, CAA has CAA labs where like they really take, I haven't used it, but I've heard about it and I know the people behind it, they're very smart people. So, you know, they're going in and they're looking at like your audience across everywhere you are on the internet and pitching creators. Like, we think your audience is going to like, you know, jarred pickles and seltzer water, whatever it is, like, I think that could work, but at the end of the day, it really depends on what the audience wants. You know, if you're a comedian with a very low you're a comedian with a very young following, then maybe, custom suits is not your thing, so you just have to kind of really understand your audience. No different than when you're making the video or you're making the music, is what does your audience want? And the product has to be the same thing. As Shots right now, we're trying to treat products like a creator, and we want to turn products into creators. And that's why, I'm a big fan of this, Liquid Death. You know what I mean? Like, this is content. It is, people laugh. They ask questions. I had a call with their team last week about content ideas, and, it's like, this is content. This draws your attention. It's like, what is that? You want to know more? I've read everything on this can, all the labels and everything, just to get a kick out of it. And, it's all standard stuff that they need, legal stuff they need to put, but even like the fonts, I'm looking at it, what I mean? It's just like got my attention, and that's turning a product into a content creator. And if a creator could get behind one of these and do that with the product, and you have these two things, is just that much more explosive. And you see a lot of YouTubers do that with merch right now. The best merch that sells right now is merch built around their content and their fandoms versus like a picture of their face with their name on it. Those don't really convert well. People don't really want to buy your name on a t-shirt. They want to buy something cool, that fun that you made, that has been incorporated into your content. So then they're part of the following. They're part of the squad. They're part of the the audience that you've built.
Yeah. And how much of this is now being empowered by the Stripes of the world, the Shopifys, all of these kind of infrastructure companies that have made it dead simple for creators to actually do this themselves? Or is it, even if those companies didn't exist, this was already a trend that kind of people were moving towards because you saw it happening where people weren't using Shopify, Stripe, and things like that?
Yeah, I don't think any of this is easily said to do if there was no Shopify. It's not, it wouldn't be something I was like, just get up and do it, because right now, when I tell you and your audience and whoever's listening, or even our creators, is you don't have to worry about how to do this. You just have to worry about what to do and what to sell. You don't worry about how's the Shopify has made it so damn easy that it's not even like when we launched lilshop.com, which is our merch site, like Shopify and building properly Shopify was like action item number 8 on our like 20 thing to-do list. It wasn't before it used to be like, all right, build a website, figure this out, and have analytics and, figure out emails and all this. But now it's like, all right, it's like saying create an Instagram account for the brand. It's just like, that's not an important thing. More important thing is what to sell right now, the quality of it. Right now, that's the top 3 priorities to us with Little Shop and any of our consumer goods products is, build something that the audience loves, make sure it's of quality, and have great customer service, like Zappos level customer service. You know what I mean? So the person comes back. You did all this work to get them to go to the website and purchase and put in their credit card, and you want them to come back. And those things are what makes it important. And Shopify has made it a world where creators can focus on those three things and not worry about, how do I build a website? Who do I call? Do I outsource overseas? You know what I mean? You don't have to worry. I spent $50,000 on this thing. You don't have to worry about that, because that's what a website would cost at the level of Shopify when you're talking about all the back-end stuff that they provide, all the analytics, everything. You know what I mean? It's not just a front-end thing, it's the back-end thing that makes it Shopify what it is.
It's an absolutely incredible company, and I think you nailed it in the sense of it's almost a foregone thought at this point, right? People just, of course I'm going to have a Shopify. You guys are obviously creating content for all kinds of different platforms, but everything kind of starts and ends with YouTube, and then you kind of go to these other platforms. YouTube's been around a long time. It's obviously got a massive audience, right? I think of it even as the second largest search engine in the world. But why do you guys spend so much time on that platform compared to, whether it's a new shiny platform that's come up or other ones that are even larger in some cases?
A few reasons, and they're all pretty much equally important. And I would tell you, for one of the reasons is when you're in the video content business, there's no limits on what you could create on YouTube. You can make it vertical, you can make it wide, you can make it 20 seconds, you can make it 20 minutes or 2 hours. It's available, the product itself is available everywhere, all mobile devices, desktop, all smart TVs, Apple TV, Roku, Chromecast, Fire Stick, everything. So it's available everywhere. The product's great. That's one of the reasons. Another one of the reasons is, to me, just being around this for so long and just paying attention to the internet for so long, it's the safest place for our content. One thing Google does not do is it just does not mess things up. They've had some flops when they've tried to launch things from start. Google Plus, Wave. I'm sure there was a few other ones that we just don't remember, but we laughed at them when they tried to do it. But once a product is up and going, they don't mess it up. You know what I mean? They did not mess up Google search. They did not mess up Gmail. They did not mess up Maps. You know what I mean? These are all products that, once it's there, they don't mess it up. They don't make sudden product changes because someone got fired and someone came in and, came from here and convinced someone that this works. They don't do that. So to us, it's a safe place. Then another part is monetization. The fact that there's monetization and very good money. I'll never get into how much money our creators make because that's really private to them and they don't really like talking about it. That's why you never see us on the Forbes list. They think it ruins the integrity of the content, which I agree. But it's no secret when you go and see what some of these top YouTube creators make. They make that. I've been to YouTube creators' houses that that are $10 million, in Calabasas. And they made it, and I know the money that's being made there. So there's monetization, and the better you do, and the better you do, and the less of an asshole you are online. Am I allowed to cuss on here?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So I want to make sure you
say
didn't
asshole. You say what?
Once I said asshole line, meaning if you curse on a piece of content, which is what I did. So I hope I didn't ruin your monetization, but podcasts are different. That's the beauty of podcasts. Now you can really be yourself. But as long as you do, you can make a really good living off YouTube. Now, is it safe to be dependent on advertisers? No, but at least it helps you build that foundation. So you could go back to what we talked about with Shopify and all these other consumer good products, and you could build products yourself and fund your projects yourself and not be dependent on advertiser, whatever, 1, 2, 3 to come in. So that's another reason. And then one other part that's really important to us, and I always talk about this, is the people that work at YouTube are some of the greatest people in the world. They're the greatest people I work with. They're the people that when they call, I'm not rolling my eyes saying, because I get a lot of phone calls, lawyers, accountants, business people, other managers, other producers, all this stuff who call me. And I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to deal with this. But when someone from YouTube calls me, I'm like, oh, they're just, I don't know the culture, how they created this culture there, what Robert Kensel has done to create this culture where everybody is happy. Everybody is honest. Everybody is open-minded that we work with there. And that drives us, keeps, so we don't have to worry about that part. We know that the people that are behind the platform that we're creating on are good people. So we're just not ever thinking like, oh man, and I've been in these shoes before in the past, like, I'm in business here, but I can't wait till the day I'm not here, and that's never really a thought. A lot of the platforms are really good people, but with YouTube, who we've had this relationship with so long, just that itself. And that's why I'm saying all these things together are equally as important for us to say, all right, we're a YouTube first company, and everything else we're going to build around this, because it's important to be everywhere. You can't be lopsided to just YouTube. You got to be everywhere. You know what I mean? Someone's, addicted to TikTok today and is going to spend hours on TikTok. I can't miss that person just because their habit was, because they woke up this morning and got a link text to them to go about a funny TikTok, and then they just got warped into this world of, I'm just going to spend the day on TikTok. I can't lose that person because of that. I can't control where they're going to be. So it's important to be everywhere. But at the end of the day, YouTube is, to us, to our company, the most important.
There's a reason why they're so big and they've been around so long, right? They're doing something right. How do you guys think about TikTok and Quibi's another kind of newer video platform? What about those two?
Well, Quibi, we never really got on. I just really wasn't sure. I'm not sure about it currently, so it's just, we'll just wait to see what happens. And as they build their audience, we'll just take a look. And if they have an audience and it resonates with our audience, and we could actually, get a jump start with their existing audience and maybe move our audience there, we'll take a look. But we haven't gotten there yet with Quibi. And that's how I felt about TikTok 1 year ago this time. And then about August, September of last year, I saw, all right, there's an audience here. And our audience does like TikTok by us just doing, some R&D work. And then we launched our TikTok accounts. I think it was the last week of August last year. So what is that? 10 months ago. And now I think we have like 15 channels and over 100 million followers on TikTok in just 10 months. Yeah. Like we have an account with 16 million, one with 14, two with 12. We have a very large following on TikTok. And what
do you attribute that growth? I mean, that's astronomical growth for any platform, but even for TikTok, that's super impressive. Like, why is that happening? Is that because you guys are better than others at creating content? Is it the content creators you have? Like what is the difference for you guys to have that type of success?
I think it's really us understanding the audience, us understanding, spending some time sitting back and paying attention for a little while who the TikTok audience is. And then, understanding our audience, and then doing some testing and going back to our development team and just having them to kind of take a look at, does us posting on TikTok help us in other places? And the answer is yes, specifically on Instagram. It really helps us with our Instagram growth, and our Instagram growth helps us with our YouTube growth. So does that help? And the team came back and said, yeah. We said, all right, cool. Then that's when we put the foot down on the gas and said, let's just go big.
And explain that more. When you say TikTok helps you grow Instagram and Instagram helps you grow YouTube, how are those connected?
Well, they discover you because it's a whole different world. Can you hear me okay? Okay. When it's a whole different world of people on TikTok, but it's a world that understands us. So we're getting a lot of eyeballs on people who've never seen us anywhere else and are coming to us, finding us on TikTok and seeing that, oh, I like this guy. I like his content or her content, her as a person or whatever it is. I want more. Well, I don't want to wait till tomorrow till they post again. Where else are they? And then TikTok has that feature where you could click on someone's Instagram profile and it deep links you to the Instagram app. Oh, great. They're posting something completely different side of this person. I knew I liked this person. Glad I did this. Who is this person? Let me read more. Go, link in bio, YouTube link. Oh, wow, YouTube video. This is going to be long. Oh my God, I really love this person. YouTube link. Dang, this video is great. I want to subscribe. Turn on notifications. And now you've got this person who found you on TikTok, got deep link to Instagram, click the link in bio. Almost all our links in bios are YouTube videos, and came to YouTube. And now we got them, on 3 different platforms.
Yeah. And then it feels like you guys have done a great job kind of doing this for video. I know that another area you guys are focused on moving forward is podcast. You've built out a podcast studio. You're going to go kind of build that as one of the pillars of the business. What's the intrigue or fascination with audio and the whole podcast world?
Yeah, so that world that I just told you about, let's just say like that's kind of the cycle. Let me find you on TikTok, the hottest app out right now by far. Then let me see more about you on Instagram. Then let me go see even more and watch you more on YouTube and subscribe. We don't want to lose them there, but you've already showed them a short video, probably something funny in 15 seconds. Show them a bunch of photos. You show them a longer video. What else? You really want to learn about this person? You really want to know now that you're really, fascinated with this person? Well, hear their brain, subscribe. Now go to wherever, Spotify, wherever. And now here's a clip on YouTube. Go listen to this person on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. And here's 1 hour of this person, raw and uncut. So it kind of goes to that cycle. And while you're there, go buy their t-shirt. Really be in this person's world. You're in their brain. You see what they like. You see what their interests are. You're part of their squad now with your merch, your shirt, your hoodie, your hat. And now you're part of this person's life. Now you got a friend.
Yeah. And I guess, how do you think about the different types of content on these platforms? So video obviously is a very specific medium, right? And so you can change the types of content that you post on a TikTok, a YouTube, an Instagram. Like there's different lengths, there's different types of content that does well on each of those. Audio is a whole different ballgame, right? And maybe
Agreed.
You can take a podcast and you do a video and post it on YouTube or something like that. But for the audio only platforms, how do you think about a different type of content? Meaning, like, what is the creators who are really good at video and on these kind of more traditional platforms? What are they thinking about creating in the audio medium?
Yeah, I think in the audio world, and I have to throw out this disclaimer that I'm still learning and our team is still learning, and we're hiring people to run our audio side that have more experience than I do or than my brother, who's the co-founder of the company, do. And we've hired some really great people. We have an amazing partnership with Spotify that was announced earlier this year with the podcast that we're doing with Lele Pons. And Spotify has been beyond helpful as well to helping us learn. But the one thing I've got to say, and the reason why I even agreed to come on your podcast, is your audience is tuning in right now to learn something. And, I could come in and talk about all the cool things I've done and all the cool people I know and all the great life that I have. But the podcast audience is really tuned in right now to learn something. When you interviewed Alex from BuzzFeed, or formerly at BuzzFeed, Big Technology, Shervin Pishovar, Taylor Lorenz, these are all former episodes of your podcast that I listened to. And I didn't listen to know about them. All three of them are actually my friends. I talk to them all the time. I know what they're up to. You know what I mean? I know Taylor's moving out of her apartment in New York City and going to another place. You know what I mean? I know Alex is starting up his own thing, but I learned something from each one of those podcasts. I learned so much from all three of them, completely different things too. Three different people, three different businesses, but they they got my attention because they sparked my interest. And that's what we've got to learn with our audience is, what do they want to learn? Are we going to come and Layla's going to talk about how great her birthday party in Miami's been and how much fun she's having? Or is she going to actually someone going to walk away and say, wow, I did not know that. That was really interesting. Because that's when they go talk. These are all conversation icebreakers. That's when they go talk. I do it all the time. I learn something from a podcast, and I'll go back to my best friend, who's my fiance, and I just, I'll say something, and she'll be like, "Oh, how do you know that?" I was like, "I was listening to this podcast," and and I think that's what people really want out of podcasts, and that's what we're learning right now, and that's why we're building this. It's a whole different side of us that no one's been able to get anywhere else, that they're gonna get with the podcast studio that we're building.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you're right in the sense of because it's usually longer form and it's audio, there's definitely this learning element. What I've been thinking a lot about, and I don't have the answer to, is how interchangeable audio content is. So for example, I know a lot of people a couple of years ago with the rise of Audible and things would say, hey, look, I don't really read books as much. I actually listen to them. So they started to get really big into audiobooks. It feels like now podcast and audiobooks in some way compete with each other for time because both of them are learning, but it's not, one's a book that's kind of very well thought out. The other is either an individual kind of, sharing content one-to-one, or they're interviewing somebody, right? It just feels like it's a kind of an updated book or audiobook to some degree in some weird way. How do you think about the creators you guys have are a lot of comedians or kind of comedy focused content? How do they teach or do education being kind of more of the humor side of content creation?
Yeah. So, I got to find a different word than education. When I'm talking about education, you're not going to tune in and you're not going to learn from Lele's podcast, how a Tesla is built, that's not the kind of education, you're going to learn something else. She might teach somebody, her audience, right? Because it would be awesome to listen for me, or maybe even you, to listen to a podcast that talks about how Tesla, it really is built. Where do they get the materials from? Where, what kind of metals are they using? Where are they mined? All this stuff would be really interesting to me, but not Lele's audience. Lele's audience might want to learn what are the best times to post on TikTok, to go viral. What are the best times to post on Instagram? Should I post videos or should I post photos on Instagram? What should the ratio be? And that's her audience. And those are things that we're learning for each one of the podcasts that we're launching with each one of our creators, is what does each person's audience want to learn? In the case of Rudy Mancuso, when he gets around doing a podcast, he might talk about how to direct a YouTube video, and then how to direct a YouTube video that's 40 minutes long, how to direct a YouTube video that's 1 hour long, then how to get off YouTube and direct a film that's an hour and a half that could go somewhere outside of YouTube. People want to learn those things, especially in a world now with, sadly, almost over 50 million unemployed Americans. People are going to look to the internet and say, okay, I don't think my restaurant's going to open up anytime soon. I got a couple of mouths to feed. I keep hearing about YouTubers making all this money. I feel like I'm interesting. I've never seen anyone do anything that my brain is generating to me. How do I start? Where do I start? Where do I, what do I do? What cameras are these guys using? What, you know what I mean? And imagine a podcast that could break all that down for you. And, you don't have to worry about, whenever it's time to go back to work and trying to compete with 50 million other people to get a job back. What if you controlled your own destiny? But where do you start? And I think, if someone like Rudy could create a podcast like that, or anybody, maybe one of your listeners could create a podcast like that, they've got something there. And I think those are the things that make podcasts so beautiful, is that now you have all different verticals of podcasts. You have talk shows, you have, the crime stuff, you have these other ones. But to me, that's what we want to do. We want to take the things that we have learned over the years and share them with the world.
Yeah. And so how do you think about, I'll call kind of the maturation or the rise of a content creator, right? So many of the content creators that you work with start out on Vine, for example. Then they've kind of moved over to YouTube. They've built these big followings. TikTok comes out, they build a big following there. We've talked a lot about kind of how you monetize that, but there's also seems, at least from the outsider view looking in, certain inflection points from the popularity or the audience, right? So things like getting a Netflix show or getting onto traditional television. Are those things actually, in the eyes of the creator and in the eyes of you guys, seen as kind of further along in the maturation and popularity of a creator? Or is that more of just the external folks think that getting on television or getting a Netflix show is a big deal, but actually the creators, they're not even really worried about that stuff or aspire to do that?
It really depends on the creator's interest and what they want to do, whether it's what their heart wants to do or what their talent allows them to do. It really depends. We look at our company, it's centered in the middle is YouTube. And then outside of YouTube, we have all these other ancillary businesses that Shots is building. And they're all like really based around what we feel like the world needs. One part is music, one part's podcast, one part's merchandise, one part's consumer goods product, one part is other social networks. We have all these different ancillary businesses that are built around YouTube. And I'm sorry, and then there's a sixth part. So it's really six. And there's television and film. And it really depends on what the creator wants to do. We had touring as one of them. It's been a little bit on hold, but it really depends on what the creator wants to do. What we do is we help them build. We help all our creators build their YouTube channels. We build our own YouTube channels. We have our own completely different original side that is really one to have originals ourselves for the company, for ideas that we could create and experiment and then share with all our other 12 channels to help evolve the channels as well. Because that's something I also always think about is, there is a time where someone gets over somebody, just because they subscribe to you at 14 years old does not mean that they want to watch you when they're 17 years old. Just because they subscribed to you when they were 18 years old does not mean they want to watch what you're creating at 21 years old. People age up. So we create all these other these other content, which we call Shots Originals, to really experiment other types of content, so all our channels together could start growing. So it really depends on where the creator wants to go. They might have some other random idea, but we have all these different businesses within Shots that a creator could really do whatever they want. If they want to become a musician, we have a whole record label that has songwriters, producers, relationships with all platforms, radio stations. Obviously, we have our own video production company and Shot Studio, so they can make a music video. Everything. Everything. If someone wants to become an artist, we have a podcast studio now. With now, as I mentioned, a team of producers that have come from different, very successful podcasts that could help someone if they have an idea of a podcast, we could build it.
Yeah, and so you sit in a very interesting place, I think, because you've got folks who started out unknown and relatively small, but have built incredible careers and incredible audiences in the tens of millions in terms of content creation on the internet. You also are very close with people that I would consider more traditional celebrities, right? So this is the Justin Biebers, the Floyd Mayweathers, and kind of that entire group of people who really kind of got popular not on the internet social media platforms, but because of the nature of what they do, they've got to be on those platforms, right? So you see they've got these massive followings. How do you think about the difference in approach for somebody who's built their popularity and celebrity on the platforms versus somebody who built it elsewhere and then kind of creates content as a kind of a secondary piece to what their career is actually, grown into?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Floyd and Justin, I met both during phase one of our business when we had the studio at first. With Floyd, he always was a believer in us creating this content around different celebrities, including himself, which we launched his YouTube channel many years ago. I don't remember, maybe almost 10 years ago. And Justin, like I remember my first time I not met Justin, but first time I talked to him about the business was, we were going to build like a cartoon studio, and we were going to create cartoons with different celebrities. And then right around then is when they both actually invested in the company. Shortly after they invested, we realized that this phase is not working right now. And then we launched the app, which they were okay. They were perfectly fine with the pivot. And they actually said, we actually maybe like this idea more. The app sounds great. And the product, they saw the product and they loved the product. The product was flawless at the time. Like it was next level. Like the team, they're up since still in San Francisco, and I always pay attention to other things they're building, like the best out there. Some of the major apps right now that most people really love were built by the team that actually created Shots. They've moved on, obviously not working with us, but and then the app, and then when it was time to go back to Square phase one, I don't know why I'm saying phase like it's coronavirus, but it's but plan A, they were all about it and they were supportive, and they've just been real big supporters as in both investors and moral support with us to allowing us to create what we do, and that's why we have such a great relationship with both of them. I want to say I talked to both of them maybe I don't know, 7 days a week, Floyd definitely, twice a day usually, just different things. He always has ideas and we bounce off each other, and then he's asking about the company and what I've been up to, and how was the day and what's tomorrow look like and whatnot. And Justin does the same as well. Justin obviously follows all our social accounts. When we post something about a specific project, he's always the first to call me. He's like, hey, what is this about? How, what is it? How's this tied in everything? How's, this and that, you said there's a teaser. Can I see the full thing and all that? So they're both incredible. And I think Floyd invested in the company in 2010 and Justin invested in the company in 2012 or 2013. I don't remember. And, it's been quite some time. They've been so supportive of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it feels also like a lot of the more traditional celebrities, whether they're musicians, artists, athletes, whatever, they've gotten much, much smarter over the years about how not only one, they can build the online audiences, but two, also monetize them as well, right? And you mentioned a couple earlier, the 50 Cent with the vitamin water and things like that. How do you think about creators as investors, right? Because I think one of the things that is already interesting is like, hey, I can build these companies, or I can use my audience. Another thing is I can take capital that I have, I can invest it into a startup, a company, whatever, and then I can help them get to my audience, right? But I'm doing it not as the majority owner, just as a minority owner. Like, what has that conversation been like, if at all, with creators?
It really, that all really depends on the creator or the celebrity and the brand. It doesn't always make sense. But sometimes it does. I think Shervin was one that really understood, okay, I've got this company, whether it was through his fund or when he worked at Menlo, it was like, I've got this company and I know the perfect person that can actually help this company. And, and he would, fly down to Los Angeles. I remember those days, like he would fly down to Los Angeles and have meetings with the right people that were great for that brand, for that product, for that company. So he would always bring very, very smart entertainment money into the startup. And I think a lot of people have followed that path, and a lot of people have done it, but some people still do it wrong. It doesn't make sense, for let's say a YouTuber who has a very young audience that watches him or her because they do pranks to invest in a medical device company. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, but it happens, sometimes, the medical device company gets excited because the person has a lot of followers on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And then this other person is sold on like, hey, your 50 grand could become $10 million. This is how you invest. You could be part of Silicon Valley. And then this is a like forced relationship and it just never really works. And then the creator gets over it because they posted about it and no one, they called the company and say, how did it do? It was like, I didn't convert, you're not the right person. And then creators like, well, what do you mean I'm not the right person? You know who I am. You know what I mean? It becomes this big, weird thing. And then there's all this resentment built in, and I think that's one thing that Shervin did a great job with. I know there's a lot of firms that have done a great job with it, and I'm just not thinking of who they are, but Shervin was always the one I remember really like pushing hard for companies that he had investment to fly down to LA and meet with the perfect partner.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then how do you and the creators that you work with think about kind of the legacy media, right? In terms of we're now seeing specific reporters focusing on internet culture, right? So Taylor Lorenz at New York Times is obviously probably the leader there. But how have you guys thought about that, given that many of the creators are able to build such large audiences and talk directly to them via these other platforms? Like, is that even part of the strategy to leverage the legacy media and some of the more kind of incumbent publications?
Yeah, I mean, I think, people care. They have audiences, their audiences are human beings. You know what I mean? Like they're still reading the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or Ad Age, Billboard, Tube Filter. So, they're reading these, and people care about them. They have audiences, like audiences bigger than more people that these publications are covering. You just need to know as a reporter who has that audience and not the one-off audience who's not I'm going to write about this person now, but they're going to fall off the face of earth in 3 months. So my story is really irrelevant in three months. And I think that's where someone like Taylor has nailed. She knows who has the audience, who has come and gone. If they have gone because she was wrong, what happened to them? You know what I mean? She'll know. She just doesn't say like, oh, I messed up, I don't know what happened. No. This person self-destructed because they did this and they did that and they did this bonehead move and blah, blah, blah. She really does. She's the best. She there's nobody like her, and I've told her that. I talked to her a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know, she probably thought I was maybe trying to pitch a story to her, but wasn't even trying to do that. I just want to tell her how awesome she is and what she's doing for the internet culture right now is awesome. There's going to be copycats, I think maybe, I don't know. You've got to have some, some of these publications are so, old school thinking that I don't know if they would, hire someone like Taylor who will spend some time with TikTokers and travel with TikTokers to see, what is this, this shift in culture. I think the one publication that does a great job, and because they really focus on this business, is Tube Filter. Tubefilter.com, like those guys really get it. And they're just, they're every article on that site. I'm just like, okay, yeah, all right. I'm never reading an article saying this isn't for me or this is BS or, oh, that sucked. Like they really, so as a reporter, Taylor is the best out there. And as a, there's a lot of other great ones. I just, she's just stands out to me as the GOAT, the greatest of all time right now. You know what I mean? Like she really is. She's and then Tube Filter as an actual site does an incredible job. Others are starting to copy them, but they're doing a great job.
Yeah. And one of the last questions I have for you is, as you think about creators as kind of this platform or micro platform, right? And then you've got the products that you can really create as content. Help me understand the balance between what I'll call like more analog or physical products. So t-shirts, cosmetics, whatever, versus software products. So working with a creator to actually build like a more scalable technology company that then gets piped through to their audience. How do you guys kind of think through physical products versus software?
Yeah. So right now, our focus is physical products. It's something that, because of Shopify and how easy they've made it, we're going down the route of getting physical products that our audience would enjoy, would come back, would not feel ripped off buying. And that's our focus now. I've never thought of really virtual products. I mean, I had one of the best apps in the world at one point, and it was like a little bit, like I'm still a little bit heartbroken on what happened. So I've never really, I get an itch sometimes on like building another app. But then, I shoot the idea down within, a few hours of thinking about the idea. And I just say, don't be, right now we look at us because we create for all platforms. We look at like the platforms as like, as I used as an example once, and I actually got some weird tweets about it saying bad example. So I'm going to do it again is, we look at the platforms as like, if there's like a big war, cause they're all at war with each other. We look at them as like countries at war, and we're like the ones building the armory. Like we're just, whatever your needs are. You need tanks, we got tanks. You need missile launchers, we got missile launchers. You need F-14s, we got F-14s. Yeah, I mean, we're the company. I always forget the company that that builds all these down in I think Texas. But we want to be that for the platforms. You have vertical video that disappear in 24 hours. We got content for that. You have 15-second videos. We got that. You have. Even if we were to do something for Quibi, which we haven't yet, but, you want videos that look both, great vertically and horizontally, we could do that. We could just do anything. You want audio, you want music. And so that, because of that, that's just like so fun. And there's such a need for that we don't really have, we're not really looking to build any software now. Now there are softwares that creators can team up with, and if we find the right company, we'll do that. I was talking to a friend of mine, FaZe Banks. He's from part of the FaZe clan and one of the greatest human beings in the world. And we were just catching up yesterday. We just moved not too far from each other. And, he was just telling me how, how much money, their esports crew. And he was just telling me about how much money they make off like skins, and the number was crazy, like way more. I'm just thinking like, oh, and that's all profit. You don't have to buy the product and build a fulfillment center, which is what we've done, and deal with shipping and deal with all this. So you're just creating skins. Like that's just pure profitability. So if we get to that point where we can partner up with someone that makes sense and it makes sense for our audience, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, I love that. You've been doing this for a long time. What's one or two of the biggest lessons you've learned over the last, call it, decade or so in the content business on the internet?
Always be evolving. You can't be comfortable. An average creator lasts 3 years. Like I said, eventually people age up, just like an average TV show lasts 3 years. You have your, Game of Thrones and these other ones that last longer, but an average TV show lasts 3 years, an average creator lasts 3 years. So if the sink is shipping, you don't have to jump, just figure out how to not sink and keep sailing, so that's the one thing I think, when the ship is sailing, I feel like you either drown with it or you just jump off. But I think you got to always be evolving. There's so many things to do, like we just named all the different things, and we didn't even really get into Snapchat or Twitter or I mean, who knows? Some of these Chinese platforms, the other Chinese platform, not the TikToks, but there's dozens of other ones in China. We haven't even talked about any of that. We haven't talked about what's the one that reporters are using right now to write their own articles. Not Medium, but there's a Medium.
Substack.
Yeah, them. Like these are all places where you could like grow audiences. So just keep doing that, and don't be lopsided to one place.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite questions to ask people now is, what is the best decision you've made in your career, and what is the worst decision you've made in your career?
The best decision I've made in my career has got to be building this studio, and a studio that is not focused on one thing, focused on different things, because I'm someone that does go to sleep with ideas and dreams of new ideas and wakes up with new ideas. And, to take away my anxiety or not take away the anxiety, but take away anxiety before it's built up, is like just experimenting. As a creative, many creative people, they get their anxiety, and which could lead to other bad, dark things, whether it's depression or drug use or anything like that. Is you just have to, as a creative person, not let it sit in your subconscious mind and get it out. And I think that's one of the reasons why we built the studio. Like, we can do almost anything: record music, record videos, film videos, podcasts, is that. And it's really helped me. And not everything have we created has worked. We've done a lot of things that haven't worked as well, but at least I did it. At least I'm happy about it. I don't regret anything that I've ever created, whether it worked or didn't work. We spent a lot of money on certain children's programming right before children's programming took a hit on monetization. I don't regret it. I loved it. When now we're doing other children's programming that's coming out of it, such as Benny the Bee. So, there's things that that's the one thing that I'm really proud of, is just keep creating and don't let anything stop us. The thing I'm not proud of, there's maybe a lot of little things, but there's not like a major thing that sticks out. I think everything's always worked out. Moving from LA to San Francisco and back to LA worked out, helped save the company and helped me meet my fiance. So I can't say I would have been at the place, the same place and time I was, to meet her, if I didn't leave and come back. So there's nothing, no mistakes. The one advice I have to give to anybody listening is, always save your money. You know what I mean? If you want to experiment something, experiment small. Don't go huge, because if you save your money, you have money in your bank account, you could do the first thing I was just now talking about, is you're going to experiment anything you want. So, we were lucky. We raised a lot of money for the app. We saved a lot of it to be able to make this pivot. We didn't have to bankrupt the company and start another company. You know what I mean? It was confusing some investors who invested into the app. But at the end of the day, we did a service to everybody, every investor. They came along with the journey, but we did that because we were always very careful with how much we spent, no matter what it was. And you guys know, and those who know are listening know how expensive rent and developers in San Francisco can be. And we always, we didn't go and get the biggest place. We always treated it as if we were running on seed round money. And I think that's the one thing that I have to say, that, mistakes that I've almost made, but I didn't make, is blowing through money. If you don't blow through money, you could save and evolve and experiment. I said, I mentioned R&D earlier. We have an R&D division, but it's not an R&D division it's $4 million a year to build whatever it wants. It's like, hey, build this. You have a $1,500 budget. I know what I said sounds like it's going to cost 20 grand, and I want it to look like it costs 50 grand, but you have $1,500 to experiment that. You know what I mean? And that's one bit of advice I have to give any content creator or anyone who's getting into the production business. People blow through cash a lot. You hear about companies raising $1 billion and when, filing for bankruptcy years later, you don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Sometimes, it's like alcohol. Sometimes the cheaper, the better, So you don't have to spend a lot of money to create content on the internet. So don't do it.
I love it. That's great advice. 2 questions to finish up, and then you're going to get to ask me one. The first one is more serious, which is, what is the most important book that you've ever read?
Most important book I've ever read. I try not to read too many business books, so I can't really recommend a book that is relevant to everything we just talked about this past hour. I think the most important book I've ever read has to be the autobiography of Malcolm X. It really, but I read it early. I read it when I was, I think, 15 years old. And to me, it taught me a lesson at 15 to don't feel sorry for myself. The world is going to be the world could be very cruel. Hopefully not as cruel to me as it has been to other people. But if it is, just keep keep your head up and keep going. And that's the one thing I remember just always feeling. And even if I felt bullied or, or felt down or just felt made to be inadequate growing up, that book always gave me courage. I recommend the book, and then I recommend the movie with Spike Lee and Denzel Washington after. I don't recommend ever watching it before because I don't know, maybe you can, but I watched the movie after, and it just kind of like visualized everything I had just read. But the book is just something else that I try to actually advise a lot of friends, and they hits them off guard. I was like, oh, I thought you were going to tell me to read the Steve Jobs autobiography. I was like, no, or biography. I was like, no, you can read that too. I'm sure that's good, but read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Love that answer. You're the first person to recommend that one. So that's a great recommendation.
It's great. I hope, please, you, Pomp, anyone listening, please let me know after you read it. Let me know if I was right, wrong. It's been a long time since I've read it, so remind me of some of your favorite parts.
Yeah, for sure. Last question is more fun, which is aliens, believer or non-believer?
Man, you asked somebody else this in a podcast. It's a question you always ask, right?
Yeah.
You always, yeah. I remember hearing, and I remember starting to think about it, and then I got freaked out, which means I've got to be a believer. I don't know much. I probably don't know much more than almost anybody here, except for who was the president? I forgot what president. I think it was the president before Kennedy. There's like this article like online that he had a meeting with the aliens out in like the desert in California. Yeah, there's like one of the U.S. presidents had a meeting. It was like a legitimate site. I don't remember which site, but it wasn't like aliens123.net. Like it was like a legitimate like publication that actually like written at like one of the newspapers back then read an article that so and so had a meeting. So I think they're there. I personally, maybe this is like just how I feel in just general in life is I think they're harmless. I don't think they're going to come here and suck the soul out of us and throw us back or, I don't think it's like that. I think they're going to, but I don't know. But actually, maybe they're not though. Maybe they do that because I feel like we would do that to them if we landed on one of their planets. So, I know they're there. Are they going to come after me? I don't know. But I do think there's definitely like it's very egotistic. I think to say there is not any other life but us. I think there's got to be life out there. Now I don't think it's how these Hollywood movies over the last few decades have kind of portrayed them because they have no idea.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Right, it's one of these
just
things.
Like we didn't get flying cars. You know what I mean? Just like they were right about flying cars in 2000. It's supposed to be now, isn't it? I don't think they're right.
Instead, we got what is Tesla? They've got the like crazy mode or whatever. You press the button and
it's like a disco.
Yeah, and I think also just goes like incredibly fast or whatever, right? And it's
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, they got a button I think in one version of the car where you basically press it and it just fucking takes off. And so it's like we didn't get flying cars, but we got discos and nitrous oxide.
I've seen a disco mode one. Yeah, disco mode. One of the creators we work with, she has a Tesla, and like she hits a button and it starts like doing something crazy. I don't know. It's I think Elon was like on something, like when he's designing those things. But God bless him and his brain. He's one of my favorite people in the world. Like I've actually, because of Sherman, I actually have had to spend some time with him. And the dude is just, is what you see is what you get with him. And I think he's an incredible person. And I think when it comes to innovation, I believe he's just getting started. I think this is all day one for Elon Musk.
Love that. You get to ask me one question to wrap up. What one question do you have?
Let's see. What I'm gonna ask that too basic. Where do you see? Actually, I want to ask this, but more for me and even listeners, because I talked about podcasts so much. Where do you see podcasts going? Like, why? Where do you see it? And kind of maybe a second question, but relevant to the first question is, and why has it been so explosive in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So I don't know for sure, right? Obviously just my personal opinion. The two things I would say is, I think podcast, I forget who said this to me. It just stuck in my head when they said it, but the idea that right now you have AirPods in your ear and you hear someone's voice in your ear, that's a very intimate experience, right? You're just hearing them and it's just so close and kind of intrusive in some way, but you're inviting it in. I think that is a really big piece of it. It's a very different medium than watching somebody or, consuming an Instagram post or whatever, for whatever reason. It's just like podcast audio only in your ear, very intimate experience. So I think that is one piece of it. The second piece is it's very repeatable and it's very kind of action oriented, meaning that I can open up Instagram and I'm kind of at the will of Instagram. So the feed may give me your content, it may give me somebody else's, it may give me whoever else's. Now they're trying to predict what I want, right? So there's an element of like, they're trying to give me that. But for a podcast, I actually have to click and say play, right? And so that action of like, I'm constantly coming back and I'm listening to John's podcast and I'm actively clicking in and playing it. It builds this habitual thing where, like, again, to your point, like people become fans, right? They literally, they're there because they want to be there. It's not something where they just are kind of mindlessly scrolling and it counts as a view or whatever. And so I think that naturally people pay more attention to things that they actively have to engage in. And so when you think of it from that standpoint, it feels like a medium where if you can build the repeatability, right, and kind of the retention of people listening over and over and over again, that relationship between the creator and the audience goes much deeper than, let's say, if somebody follows me on Instagram, right? So if you said to me like, hey, pick a platform where somebody is a follower, subscriber, I would say either Twitter or podcast. Now, Twitter for me is just because I create so much content there, or the podcast is like, if I can get somebody to listen to a podcast every day or multiple times a week, like that is such a strong relationship with that person. They're going to understand, everything that I talk about. They're going to understand everything the guests talk about, right? They're going to learn a lot, but like, it's such a deep relationship that I think people probably don't listen to like hundreds of podcasts, right? They probably have, 10 or less. And so you just go much deeper on that medium with those 10 people versus, at this point, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever, like people subscribe because the platform's been around for so long, so many different people that it's much harder, I think, to build that like deep relationship with the audience.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think it's really maybe the only way to do it, unless you actually do a thing where, hey, you could come and sit down with me, one-on-one, but how are you going to scale that? No, those are both very helpful. And you're right about the AirPods in your ear. And and now you can find them almost anywhere. It's just crazy to me, and I think about this all the time, and I even think about this sometimes when I'm on calls with Spotify, is how did Apple not just own this? Like, how did they let this go? Like,
here's the thing. So I keep hearing this, right? And I hear it from creators, I hear it from like management companies, I even hear it from other like podcast like service companies, so whether they do hosting or whatever. But every single creator I talk to, 50% of downloads come from Apple. And it feels like, I think to your point, like they're not even trying, right? Like they're not going out and acquiring a bunch of content. They're not doing a bunch of things. Spotify has made a massive push. It's a priority at the company. They're built the team and they're really going after it. But every creator I talk to, 50% of downloads come from Apple. And I think it's really just they're on the iPhone devices. Most likely, for me, I think 50-60% of the audience is in the US, right? So you only get 40 to 50% outside the US. The iPhone market share penetration in the US is off the charts, right? And then Android kind of internationally, really makes up for it. And so when you think of it that way, it's like, it's very weird that they haven't tried, or at least it appears they haven't tried, but they still have 50% compared to everyone else.
Yeah. They're still 50%, but those numbers are going to change as the audience gets younger, right? Like now you're seeing a lot of content creators launching their podcasts. You're going to see a lot of TikTok creators launch podcasts. and that audience that's going to be a younger audience, which is always almost has been Android. I mean, it was almost all Android at one point, and now the hand-me-down phones that, are becoming older iPhones, but it's still Android. And as the audience gets international into markets like, say, get down to Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, these are all top markets. I mean, Indonesia's not really a top market for Spotify, but it's a top market for YouTube and others. But these market, as these audiences start growing, podcasts become a thing in non-Apple penetrated markets, they're really going to lose a lot more market share. I could tell you right now, like Apple Music consumption for songs in Brazil is something, is like less than 10%. I even think, I don't know. I know it's definitely less than 10%. I even think it's maybe even 1 or 2%, and, but the music is a little bit different because, someone in Brazil who, which most of their population speaks Portuguese, will still listen to a song by, a non-Brazilian artist. They might not listen to an hour podcast. So, but still, like, there's still like market share, Brazilians, when Brazil gets into podcasts, and they have already, like, I know Spotify had like some roadshow down there, and some like 600 different creators showed up at the Spotify one. So, but once podcasts really blow up in Brazil, whether it's in Portuguese or English, Apple's going to have none of that market share. Zero. You know what I mean? Like, if music's only a couple percent, what's podcasts, going to be? So, and Spotify is just going to own that, or YouTube whenever, everyone uploads clips onto YouTube, but or almost everyone uploads clips on YouTube. But if YouTube actually, gets into that has a podcast division, a vertical team, they'll be on Spotify or YouTube. And it just blows my mind that Apple would, but it doesn't blow my mind. Maybe they're like, we don't care about podcasts. We're selling millions of these devices at thousands of dollars. Like, shut up about free podcasts.
You got like, $200 billion of cash or whatever it is, right? Like,
that's what I mean. Like, maybe like we don't care. We'll buy everybody. Well, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. We'll buy Spotify. We'll buy, they can't buy any Google products, but they could buy Spotify. They could buy almost anyone else that's not a, top tech company. So, or top 5 tech company. But, yeah, maybe that's what it is. And I always think to myself, like, even music, like, how are they not so much more bigger? But not, or even a lot of things, even like the Mac Mail app is so bad. And I'm like, they probably don't care. Go ahead and use Gmail. Just give us the $1,000 for the phone. Okay. Like, shut up and just give us $1,000 and $3,000 for the laptop. And that's it.
Somehow everything keeps getting more expensive, right? Remember when the iPhone was, $600 or $700, right? Now it's $1,000. I remember when computers, right? They seem to get more and more expensive. So
yeah.
It's something.
But there's something Apple did drop the ball on. And actually, Alex, I think Alex talks about it with you on one of your previous podcast episodes, is in-home hardware. Like, how did they let that one slip? Because it's too late at this point. I mean, I'm a Google guy, so I use all Nest products. But, between Google and Amazon, maybe Facebook portal, maybe. But, between Google and Amazon, like, how are you even going to come close to competing with that? So, like, I think like that. I don't know. I think, I don't see that changing, But again, maybe they don't care. That's fine. Go ahead. Use the doorbell for $200. Just buy our phone. It's now $1,500. It's now $2,000. It's now $3,000. So
it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because they got the big push into services now, and they're doing pretty well. But I definitely agree that there's areas where UI and others would have thought they went and didn't. So
yeah,
interesting.
Definitely.
All right, John, listen, I really appreciate taking the time to do this. This is fantastic. I think people will learn a ton, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
I hope so. Yeah, I would love to. Anytime.